you sip it slowly. It's a very sippable spirit because it's smooth and it doesn't burn. And slowly the flavors open, and your first taste will often start to come through after you've taken two or three sips using the Shatbi Basu method of tasting as revealed to me by her. um, and then you can put ice in it, and then when you put a little piece of ice in it and let the ice melt, you'll more and more flavors will start to come out as the percentage of alcohol in the mix of ice and mahua comes lower and lower as the ice melts. And by around 30 you'll start getting different flavors. By around 25, 20 also, and eventually it will come down to the strength of 15, which is how tribals drink it, and you will get to taste how it tastes.
तो वेलकम फ्रेंड्स टू यूट्यूब चैनल अमेजिंग इंडिया। और आज मैं आया हूँ मिस्टर डेस्मंड नुसरत से मिलने के लिए, जिन्होंने महुआ को इंटरनेशनलाइज किया है। महुआ का जब हम नाम लेते हैं तो हमें ऐसा लगता है कि जैसे कोई इंडिजीनियस ट्राइबल्स द्वारा बनाया गया लिकर है, लेकिन उन्होंने इसको इंटरनेशनलाइज किया है। और इसी बिल्डिंग में रहते हैं, अल्टिनो हिल्स, गोवा का सबसे पॉश इलाका। तो अब मैं चलता हूँ, उनसे मुलाकात करता हूँ। Whenever we take the name of Mahua, the picture that emerges in our mind is some domestic spirit prepared by the tribals and the local men and confined to the place where it is being produced. With me, a personality is here, Mr. Desmond Nusrat, who has internationalized the Mahua brand. So let us talk with him. So welcome, Mr. Desmond, in this channel.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Yeah. So my first question is, how it came to your mind that Mahua should be internationalized, while it has been always neglected by the respective governments?
Right. So it's not that I thought about internationalizing Mahua right away, but it came as an outgrowth of what we were trying to do in India with Mahua. Because first of all, making Mahua officially and selling it across state borders in India was a big breakthrough for us.
Correct.
Involving getting lots of permissions from various states involved in the raw material and the distillation and the bottling and so on. Each state has their own rules. So that big breakthrough happened, and then we started to sell in limited markets in India and found that there was a lot of resistance to adding a new product like Mahua, which many states consider to be a country liquor, to also be classified as an official liquor. So given that things are moving very slow in India, and partly because of the shutdowns in the past 16-18 months, we came up with the idea that we should really focus on taking Mahua abroad, where alcohol sales are not affected by whatever is happening in the pandemic. In fact, they are affected, if at all, positively. And online sales are easily possible in many countries and so on, many markets. So we thought maybe if we take our Mahua abroad, perhaps we can do two things. One is take something unique out of India, which has deep heritage value, but which we have now created at international quality, take a very high expression of it to foreign markets and introduce the world to Mahua. So our company is going to be called Mahua to the World Incorporated. It's already called that. We've already registered a company. Yeah, that speaks to what we're trying to do. So we want to introduce the world to Mahua, because Mahua is the world's only flower-based pot distilled spirit. It's a new category because there are spirits made out of grain, out of vegetables, botanicals, but nothing that's distilled out of the natural sweet flavors of the flower. And flower is a unique category. So that's why we want to introduce the world to this amazingly versatile spirit that has emerged from the cultural heritage of India, centuries of it. Indigenous people who have nurtured this in the background in a position of shame, but now we are bringing it to not only national but international customers and cognoscenti.
Are you getting some support from the state governments regarding its nutritional value and other benefits from Mahua?
No. The state governments are barely involved in things like nutritional value and so on. They are involved. The Mahua trees belong to tribal people, no matter where they are located, whether it's in the national forest, state forests, or even on private land often. So the nutritional value, mainly Mahua has been used by tribal people in the past century or so to make liquor. And there used to be a whole tradition of Mahua as food, which is dying out. We are actually on the site trying to revive that, because Mahua flowers, when collected hygienically at food grade level, the kind we use, we see that it has immense value as a nutritional supplement. In fact, properly cured, the complex flavors of the Mahua flower, the taste of the flower, and its role in small quantities in things like breakfast cereals, in confectionaries, cakes, in sweets. It's a natural, it's a wonderful, wonderful flavor, the flower itself.
To my readers, will you please tell something about your company and the products that you are serving to them?
Okay, our company started off as what is called a micro distillery, but soon we realized that we were part of the international movement of craft distilleries. We were at a certain scale and using indigenous raw materials to make products from the field all the way to the bottle and so on. And we started with agave spirits, then we moved to cane spirits. In between, we did some liqueurs involving the Nagpur orange. And then our Mahua permissions came through after many years, and we said, now let's start doing Mahua as well. So we do that as well in the distillery now. But before that, we have several branded products under the brand name Desmond G, which are available only in limited parts of India and limited markets: Goa, Maharashtra, mainly Bombay and Pune for now, and maybe Thane soon, Bangalore, Pondicherry, Mahe, and Daman. So this is at Goa is our main base, of course. So in these markets, we sell limited numbers of products. In Goa, we sell pretty much all our products, which are cane spirits, orange liqueurs, margarita blends that are alcoholic, and Mahua.
What is the price range of this liquor?
In Goa, the price ranges from around 650, 675 to about 1,000 plus. Yeah, just 100 or 2, depending on the product.
And how you get this Mahua? From which states do you collect it?
Mahua flowers are available in 13 states in India, all in the central forest belt, starting from eastern Rajasthan and Gujarat and going all the way to Bengal and sweeping through the northern parts of Maharashtra and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, of course. So we have been getting from different sources. We started with Odisha and Jharkhand, and this year we are probably getting it from just Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. Now, next year, Maharashtra has begun to, the state governments have been, some of them have been in touch with us, and we've been making policy proposals to them to change the game for tribal people in terms of freeing the Mahua flowers from the bonds of excise, surveillance, and movement and trade, first of all. And secondly, to look at removing the limits on what tribals can make and keep and sell, and then to encourage tribal people to start small high distilleries producing high quality Mahua that they can sell to tourists and within the state, and then maybe even export later, but run by tribal people who are going to be the main beneficiaries of it and supported by the state government. These are things that we have proposed. We have also proposed a special tax, a heritage alcohol tax, to be applied to all Indian alcohols that have been made traditionally and can now be productized, generating livelihoods in areas that are unexpected. In our case, tribal people in very poor parts of India, so that the price they get for their Mahua increases and hence their livelihood opportunity increases. So the states are slowly responding. We have also suggested that they set up a Mahua Research Institute, that is a national institute, because of the huge amount of Mahua that is collected every year in India. We estimate, we have seen estimates between 1 lakh tons and 10 lakh tons, and we are saying there's probably around 5 lakh tons per year. That's a lot of mahua. The dollar value of that, even calculated at a very small number, not including all the value add that happens within the tribal communities, is close to 250 million pounds.
Mostly
That's
I
a
have
lot.
seen.
And we need a research institute to support that economic activity.
Mostly I have seen that these mahua collectors are being exploited by the local ठेकेदार्स mostly.
Yes.
So with all these efforts, are they benefiting?
Yeah, what we are doing is a drop in the bucket. I told you, we get maybe 10, 20, 100 tons or 500 tons, 1,000 tons out of 5 lakh tons. So you can imagine that we are hardly scratching the surface as a company right now. But if it becomes a little larger, what will happen is that since the flowers are still owned by tribals, if their main requirement is cash, right? So that's why they give it at a very low price to people who give them cash. And then those people store it for a while and then they sell it back to tribal distillers for a very high price. So we are hoping that tribal people will keep the food grade stuff, the high quality stuff for themselves and sell it directly to the market. And then they can sell the lower grade stuff to the thekedars or whoever they want to sell to.
So have you made efforts in this direction also?
Yes, we have worked with tribal people so far. Directly, and we have seen that they are appreciating getting almost double their prices normally, and they get it right when they need it, which is as soon as the harvest is done, as opposed to so the important thing is cash in hand for them. So and you're giving them a very good price up front. I mean, obviously, but we are scratching the surface of a huge
Exactly.
opportunity. I mean, in time, if more players come into the market, if they follow our principles of making sure that tribals benefit from it, because value has to come all the way down the chain. They are doing something extra by doing little food grade collection. They should benefit hugely from it.
And what are your future plans?
Future plans are to basically ride the whole mahua wave. We have created the mahua wave. Now we should ride it. And we are going to ride it first abroad because in India it's very difficult still. State governments move very slowly. Alcohol is a state subject. Each state has to do its own thing. Each state has to declare mahua to be a heritage alcohol. Each state has to support tribal activities for food grade mahua per our policy suggestions maybe, which we have shared with many states already. And we want to see mahua improve the livelihood of tribals in India. That's somehow we will support that activity one way or another. Indirectly, of course, because we are a private company. But we support government initiatives. And the heritage alcohol movement that we have started also. We would like to support that. While taking mahua to the world and showing the world how amazing this hidden spirit of India was that has emerged from the forests of India now and has come to them. So that's our big vision for the next 5 years.
Which countries you are exporting your brand right now?
Right now, we have 2 importers in Europe. One of whom is selling in Europe, in Denmark, and the other one has taken it and we are selling in the US. Our agave spirits. Shortly, cane spirits will start to be sold in Denmark. And then we are going to take our mahua spirits abroad in the next few months if we get funded. We are looking for funds right now.
So right now you told me that one institute is going to be established. Which state government is taking this initiative?
So far, nobody has done it officially, but at least a couple of state governments have shown interest. There was even some funds allocated in Jharkhand to the starting of what could be the nucleus of a mahua research institute, kind of like this National Citrus Research Institute, similarly a National Mahua Research Institute, whose body of knowledge will be shared by all the mahua states, 13 states, and which will hopefully keep the range of varietals and nutritional information, other kinds of best practices information, all in one place so that people can come and learn and spread it in their communities. So this is what I'd like to have set up, but the first moves are just being made as we speak. We have proposed and we have given details of how it could follow the path of the National Citrus Research Institute, which is the Nagpur-based institute, right? Which deals with the citrus market. We are talking about a big Mahua market worth easily about 250 million US dollars per year.
Since Mahua is found mostly in India, means none other country has propagated it up to that extent. So, do you say that it is some indigenous product that should be benefited from the Make in India product something?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a product that's made in India. It's literally designed for that. Nothing like this exists with the kind of deep heritage, the roots, the story that connects it up to colonial times. It's a very rich story, and of course, tribal people have taken it to other levels in folklore, in folk art. You see all these wonderful how Mahua plays as a kind of tree of life for them, a huge role in their cultural life, not just in their economic life.
So, what do you think? What the steps should the respective state governments to take to declare it as heritage spirit?
It's very simple. I mean, right now, Assam has declared a certain kind of grain-based spirit to be its heritage spirit. Goa has declared Feni, so the state can declare it. But it has to not just declare it; it has to also come up with standards for what these heritage spirits should do quality-wise in order to be chapoed as a heritage spirit of Goa. I mean, if you're making it very casually under a tree somewhere as opposed to making it under hygienic conditions somewhere, you'll get very different heritage values. So if you're exporting it, you have to meet international levels. So those kind of things have to be put in mind, not just declaring a heritage spirit, but declaring certain standards that production has to meet to be called heritage spirit. And these standards can be met by common distillers also, even tribal people who start distilleries mainly with the help of the state governments giving backing to give them enhanced livelihood.
And this is not only intoxication, but it has nutritional value as well.
Well, the flowers have nutritional value, and of course, all alcohol has calorific value, which you can consider nutritional because it ultimately generates sugars and fats. So you basically can consider it to be nutritional in a generic sense, just as vodka is nutritional or anything else that's like whiskey. They have calorific value, but they wouldn't be called nutritional in that sense. People have again, like folklore in many parts of the world, the local liquor is often imbued with medicinal properties, but often for amusing cultural reasons, as an excuse to have a little tipple or something, I don't know. But like Feni here, if you talk to people, they will say it's extremely medicinal, and they'll give you certain formulations with Feni and so on. So similarly, in Mahua territory, it was Mahua. In other parts of the world, maybe rum or tequila has been ascribed those properties because alcohol is an antiseptic. So it has got a natural curative thing. If you put it on a cut or a wound, the bacteria will not survive. So to that extent, it's medicinal clearly.
Correct. So where is your distillery located?
It's in South India, in a rural part of Andhra Pradesh, in the district of Chittoor. And I invite people to have a look at it on Google Earth. If they type in Agave Industries, they will find a spot they can look at it from the top. In a Google view, it shows up nicely. Or they can go to our website, desmondg.com, and see videos which are drone fly-throughs our distillery. They can have a look there, along with getting a bunch of information about all our products and our history, and the fact that we are India's first original craft distillery.
So the liquor is really definitely of international standard, very, very, very smooth.
Have you tasted it?
Yeah, it's really very smooth. Frankly speaking, very smooth. So, what other points would you like to reveal in this connection?
I mean, people often ask me, how do you drink this mahua? How do you drink mahua? Now, we are making it at a very different quality level and a strength level than the tribal folk normally drink. They normally drink at around 15% alcohol, which is slightly like a strong wine, that strength, a strong red wine or a white wine. But we make it at 40% alcohol by volume, ABV, which is typically the strength that international liquors are sold at, whether they are whiskeys, vodkas, plus or minus a few percent, but 40 is fairly standard, and we are going with that standard. When we make it at our quality level and at that strength, the best way to get to know our mahua, our version of mahua, is that you sip it slowly. It's a very sippable spirit because it's smooth and it doesn't burn, and slowly the flavors open, and your first taste will often start to come through after you've taken 2 or 3 sips, using the Shatbi Basu method of tasting as revealed to me by her. And then you can put ice in it, and then when you put a little piece of ice in it and let the ice melt, more and more flavors will start to come out as the percentage of alcohol in the mix of ice and mahua comes lower and lower as the ice melts, and by around 30 you'll start getting different flavors, by around 25, 20 also, and eventually it will come down to the strength of 15, which is how tribals drink it, and you will get to taste how it tastes to them and they drink it. So it's a nice way to sort of introduce yourself to our mahua, is my suggestion. Now, our mahua is also great for doing shots because it has a very low methanol content. It's a brilliant liquid for shots because it will be typically give you less hangovers than your typical methanol heavy alcohol. It's also good for cocktails because it's a new flavor, the only flour-based set of flavorings that are coming into natural flavorings, of course, from the flour itself, coming into the palate of the bartender so that they can make all kinds of new interesting cocktails. It's good to be drunk with fruit juices, with sodas, any number of new cocktails can be created. The drunk with tonic water and lime is a fabulous, refreshing drink. You can drink it with the ginger ale kind of thing. Play with it. It's meant to be played with. Something new, a new color that has appeared on the spectrum. Exactly. So you can play with this new color and look for new combinations of colors with this new color. So we're inviting the world to have fun with this amazing, versatile mahua spirit, which connects up with beer. We have made some connections with red wine. We made some connections, and now shots, cocktails. We've got a shot drinking ritual which we have invented called the Namaste shot, mahua Namaste shot, and you can go into the brown spirit realm with this too. I mean, the world is endless. Mahua is literally the world's most versatile spirit that I know of.
Means till last drop, it gives total enjoyment.
Well, it gives you a happy high. Mahua gives you a happy high.
Yeah. So, this is the glass.
It's the glass that you've been sipping.
Yeah, he has offered me.
And you've been sipping it.
Yeah, it's a clear, very clear, very transparent and very clear. So,
sip it on camera.
Yeah. And while talking to Mr. Desmond, I found this cat quite unusual. It's quite healthy, hairy, and this breed I haven't seen never. So sweet, quite sweet anyway. Looks like a little dog. Yeah. एग्जैक्टली तो दोस्तों इस वीडियो में इतना ही। हमने मिस्टर डेस्मंड नुसरत से बात की। काफ़ी डिटेल्स में उन्होंने हमको बताया कि कैसे वो महुआ को इंटरनेशनल लेवल पे ले जा रहे हैं और इससे किस तरीके से ट्राइबल्स की हेल्प हो रही है। तो इस वीडियो को अपन यहीं समाप्त करते हैं। वीडियो को लाइक करें, शेयर करें और चैनल को सब्सक्राइब ज़रूर करें। तो अगले वीडियो तक के लिए नमस्कार।